Mm. Looks like just you and me today, Ramiz.
Hello, Vince.
Hello. Haven't seen your face for a while. Does that mean something?
I don't know. I feel hesitant to speak. I feel like my mind is going crazy.
By going crazy, it's really busy.
It's like panic, but I'm not engaged with it. It's weird.
That is an unusual one, isn't it? So it's like your body's engaged with it, but your attention is not. Is that accurate?
It's like a pattern of thoughts, like old pattern of thoughts that I'm not believing anymore, but they still happen.
Yes, they
There
run.
is,
Yeah. Yeah. So when you say panic, that would generally involve a feeling. Have you got that feeling of panic as well, or is it only
yeah, the body,
the body is reacting? Yeah.
there is a lot of shaking, a lot of contracting. Like this constant and unease. Um,
Mm. So you had, in my mind at least, you had changed noticeably from when you first started coming to the point where you were a lot more um, uh, engaged with the group dynamics, so to speak. That's not quite right, but yeah, you were there, and you even had a different look on your face. Um, and then all of a sudden you were keeping away. So did something happen? Was there a point where you noticed? Uh, um, it's not like you went back to the way you were, but when something happened and you felt that confusion and panic and so on, did that all happen at a certain point?
No, I don't remember a specific
Oh,
point.
okay.
It just,
Right. So how's your grandmother? Did she
is
improve?
she still the same?
Oh, same, yeah. Mm. So that's obviously a telling on you somewhat. That's been going on for a while now, hasn't it?
Yeah, I feel like it's like in my mind is like I'm going through what she's going through uh, at the same
Mhm.
time.
Does it feel like you're going through it for her?
No, just something we share.
Yep. Yep. And that doesn't appear to be related to what you've got going on in your head now.
I think it's related, but uh, it's not clear. It's like there's this huge resistance and rejection of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's like what I'm seeing wrong. What is uh, if there is suffering, if there is resistance, like what illusion or delusion is causing this? What I'm not seeing right.
So that last one again, you're not what, right?
What I'm not seeing right.
Well, you're not seeing right, right. Yeah. Mm. If let's imagine a fantasy that if you were in whatever state it required for you to be unaffected by what your grandmother's going through. By unaffected, I mean your own emotions would not be involved in her suffering. That doesn't mean that you would not be feeling compassion. But if you were unaffected by what she was experiencing, do you think that would be taken by you or her or anybody else that you didn't love her?
No, it's she's going through pain, but she's also suffering from it. She's fighting it. She's
Hmm.
rejecting it,
Yes.
and when I see her, I feel like she's causing herself an extra suffering.
Yes. Without doubt, she is. Yes. And you're
And
doing the same
I
thing.
feel
We just need to work out how. Yes. And she going.
and I feel like I'm doing the same thing.
Mm.
And
You are. Yes.
so, but I don't know. It's like in my mind there's something unresolved.
Yes. That's probably right too. Yeah. Yeah. So if she were in a different place, different something, if she were, if somehow, if you were able to tell her how she is adding suffering to the pain of the situation that she's got. Now, it's a fantasy again. Let's imagine that you could tell her and she would understand what you were pointing to, and that she would lose the suffering and just be left with the primary pain of what's going on for her. What could you tell her? How would you explain to her the additional suffering that she's bringing to the situation? How would you what would you say to her in this fantasy? I don't mean in the real world.
I feel like I need to offer something. Uh, a kind of in this fantasy, I think I would appeal to something she believes in, and I would say, trust God to, and let His will be done, or something like that.
What, stop fighting it? Is that another way to say what you've just said?
Yeah,
You know, that trusting God would be a letting go of something, isn't it? That would be an acceptance that would happen if she were able to do that.
the issue is this kind of trust is not something that can be manufactured, I think.
Of course. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So telling her
And
to do something isn't going to change it, is it? But
I,
you,
it would be a lie. It would be,
yeah. Yeah. So you could see
if I,
yeah, go on.
like, I need to, for her to ask her to trust something, I have also to trust the same thing or have the same trust. It's like being being an example of like if I'm standing on an edge and someone is scared, it's okay to come here. And and I'm also scared.
Mm. So you can see the mechanism quite clearly that needs to happen. We just don't know how to bring it about, right? That mechanism is really via, in this case, with what you suggested that might happen for her, is that with trust, she would have acceptance and stop resisting and stop being involved in the stories about how bad it is and why it shouldn't be there and what all those things. So knowing that it's the resistance to what is that adds the extra suffering to it. And appealing to something that she can believe in sounds pretty skillful to me as a way of moving her, if that were possible. And are you saying that because of your belief about God, that for you to tell her that means that you would have to fake it, or that you would be lying, or however you want to put it?
I don't mind lying. I
Mm.
it's because it's not really about
Yeah, it's good cause as well. Yeah.
the it's not about God or whatever the content of the belief. It's just about the mindset or the act of trust itself.
Mm. Mm.
It's it's like the core thing that I don't feel of trust. Like I don't trust that it's okay. So I can't transmute that. I
Mm.
can fake it, but so what?
So you feel that before you can help her, you have to be an example?
Yeah, I have to help myself.
Mm-hmm. And if you were to tell yourself the same thing you would tell her, that you need to stop fighting something, that you need to find maybe the trust that everything is okay. Everything's not okay though, is it? She's in pain. She's in, she's got physical stress and suffering, physical suffering, not mental suffering. It's all going on, isn't it? It's not really okay, is it? So when we say
No,
everything is okay, we don't mean that it's pleasant. What we mean is that it just is the way it is and it can't be any other way. Is that what, how would you define everything is okay? So you got in your head somewhere there's a thing that says yes, everything is okay. What, how would you define that okay? Or maybe it's not there, maybe it's not okay.
no, it's not.
So you certainly can't tell her everything's okay if you feel it's not okay.
Yeah.
If she were to die, would that be okay?
I think the part that is not okay is the anticipation of dying.
Mm-hmm. So
That seems cruel to me.
yes, yeah, it is. Mm.
And I don't know, like I can think about like what dies or require or whatever. And maybe I see like the whole idea of this is just doesn't make sense. But that doesn't help really with the experience of this existential fear.
Mm. Why do you say it's existential? Because you can't see a source for it?
It's it's fear of the unknown, fear of it's like there's this core fear and there's this mechanism of coping mechanism of denying or fighting
Mm-hmm.
or feeling helpless, or this kind of uh, bargain with the universe somehow.
Mm. Would you say that fear of the unknown still requires anticipation, even though what is anticipated is not specified?
I don't understand.
Mm. So when we have fear of the unknown, it's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it, to say that we're afraid of something we don't know about. But we still have the idea that what we don't know about is going to be painful or unpleasant or whatever for us to have fear about it. So it's not like the unknown has an aura of pleasure and brightness and goodness and all of that. We wouldn't be afraid of that unknown. The unknown that we're afraid of feels heavy, feels bad, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the fear is inherent to the unknown. I can imagine, for example, like having a relation to the unknown of excitement, of
Mm,
whatever,
mm.
like different reaction. So
Yes, so there would be no fear there, would there?
I have this belief that it's not fair. It feels imposed,
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't choose this.
Yep, yep. Would you say imposed by conditioning?
There is a lot of factors.
Yeah.
Um, Ignorance, I think, blind evolution.
Mm. So what do you imagine the fear that your grandmother is responding to? Or maybe it's more than imagining, maybe she's actually told you, but what's your ideas about that?
Her coping is like, I wish God will take me. I want to die.
Mm-hmm. To get away
And she's
from
like,
the
she's
pain.
trying to bargain with God. Like, I don't want this pain. I would rather die. Uh,
Mm.
and she feels like a helpless child. Is like, if she complained more and more, someone would come and help.
Mm-hmm.
She feels scared. She feels alone, and
Yep. And there's no way out of it for her. Does she feel like God's not listening?
yeah, she tells me that God left her already,
Mm-hmm.
and he's punishing her.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with religion, isn't it? Yeah. So she's in a really difficult
So
situation.
the
Yeah.
difference is just she's giving a persona to God, and she's
Yeah.
blaming him. I'm just blaming blind force. It's the same mechanism, really.
So what's your version of whatever the cause is for your suffering? Do you blame God for that, or what?
I wish.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you take responsibility? Is it you? Is it yourself
No,
doing this to you?
I feel like I'm a participant somehow. Um, like I know that my beliefs, my way of things and things shape my experience to a very large degree.
Mhm.
But um, but still there is an element of something outside my comprehension. It's just outside my control, outside even.
Mm.
And I even if there is a trust or there is some kind of trust, I don't understand like it trust in what exactly
Yeah.
or for what or what evidence I have for this trust.
But you do have it.
No, I don't.
No, you don't have it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Like even if it's there, like I can't have that kind of trust.
Mm. So let's do the reverse. Let's look back at the absence of trust. Let's look at the presence of mistrust or distrust, whatever the right word is. So if you don't feel trust, you do feel that there is something you can't trust. What is that?
Everything really.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's an idea of, I don't know, maybe this is just a desire for control, like I have to control something to trust it somehow, or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that could be. That's a big one for a lot of people. Mm. But that's a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it? Because if you have control and trust,
is
it's
it
not
trust
trust.
anymore? Like,
Yeah, that's right. It's not trust, is it? Yeah. Because trust means being vulnerable, letting go, and not being protected. And control, of course, is always about being protected. Yeah. Mm.
so I understand that if there isn't someone here that needs protection, then yeah, the whole idea of trust or or control doesn't make any sense anymore.
Mm. But that doesn't mean it doesn't
Mm.
still exist at another level, even though your head can tell you it doesn't make any sense. There is still that feeling, isn't there?
Yeah,
And that feeling is related to something other than what you've got going in your head, at least at a conscious level. that feeling is relating to something that you don't actually know about.
It seems like it's a kind of universal um, energy, or it's not personal. I feel like a lot of people would see things the way I see it. They have like a pessimistic way of looking at life.
Mm. Mm.
And I don't understand why that's even possible. Like it doesn't make any sense, but it feels true. It feels
Mm-hmm.
the whole universe seems very chaotic, very cruel to human, to all life forms.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, Bianca's mentioned that one too.
And the whole thing of, I feel like the whole movement of the universe is just to escape from that suffering. It's like, then why there's suffering in the first place? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't comprehend when people point to that suffering is an illusion, or it's a story, or it doesn't exist. I can't relate. Like,
Mm.
it feels like
Well, I agree with those things you just said.
like if people speak about this, like the reason why people say like suffering doesn't exist, or suffering is a story, or whatever, like the main reason they are actually speaking about this is to reduce suffering. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You can't negate something that you're actually trying to help in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what you say is right. That's bullshit. You know, suffering is not a story. Suffering does exist, right? But it doesn't exist independently. And although it's not a story, it is the result of stories. And a lot of the time, those stories are not conscious. We don't know about them, but still, it is based on a belief. Without a particular belief, there would be no suffering. So when people say those things, it may just be shorthand, but it's not true. It does exist. We feel it. And of course, it doesn't make sense because it's not something we can cope with at an intellectual level. So that's when we say it's an odd saying. To make sense, we're talking about the mind, even though we're using the words of the body, sense, what the bodily senses. But we're saying, you know, that my mind can't find satisfaction in it. That's what we mean by not making sense, and we never will, because it's not something that happens at an intellectual level. It's something that happens at a much deeper level. But regardless, yes, I accept what you say. There's what you know, is there a reason for suffering? I don't know. Not at an absolute level. The universe, whatever that is, includes suffering because it's there, isn't it? Everything is in it. Everything is included in that. The whole spectrum from horrible to fantastic is all in it. and more probably. But we can see, to me, it is so clear that the moment I don't accept whatever circumstances I am experiencing, and what I am experiencing is the only thing that is real. It's the only thing that is actual, what I am experiencing. The moment I don't accept it, suffering is born. Suffering comes into existence.
Is suffering personal, or like, does suffering require a person or a sense of self, or is it uh,
My thoughts are yes.
I, I mean,
But it doesn't require, I mean, the illusion of a self is what gives rise to it. Because suffering is very personal, isn't it?
but I'm talking about like seeing suffering outside, like in
Yeah, in other people.
oh yeah, is it still personal? Is it?
Yes. Take away the people and there's no suffering. Requires people to exist.
That doesn't feel right to me.
Hmm.
Like, it's like, okay, there is suffering, but if there is no me, there is no other, then there is no suffering. And it seemed like a denial.
Yep. Yeah, no, there definitely need to go down that road. But yeah, it could be a denial. Yeah, I was just thinking as you're saying that, I'm wondering if animals suffer. You know, and I can see an animal locked up in a cage and it just paces wanting to get out of that cage. And would we say that that animal is suffering? We probably would. Now, when I say that's our description, so in other words, there's some anthropomorph, whatever that word is, where we're actually projecting our own ideas onto what that animal's going through. So that suffering is in our mind, and we suffer. So that's the thing, is when we witness suffering, we suffer ourselves. Now, will we still suffer when we see suffering after we've woken up? It gets a bit subtle. I think the difference is that it wouldn't it wouldn't I mean, I'm not at a point there. I suffer when I see others suffering, but my suffering is not super deep. I would I would call it compassion or empathy, but it is probably suffering if I feel unpleasant sensations from it. But it's like the tree falling in the forest, and if there's nobody there, is there a sound? No, there's vibrating air. It takes a human, or it takes an ear or a machine to translate that vibrating air into a thing we call a sound. Now, in the case of suffering, it takes a mind to interpret what's being seen or witnessed in some way to turn that into suffering. That makes sense to me. So and another way to look at that is to say, yes, it's a personal thing. So when I suffer, witnessing somebody else's suffering, is it because there's still selfing going on? I'd say yes. So it's impossible for you to witness your grandmother's suffering without you suffering, but you're not suffering what she's suffering. It's your own suffering that you're experiencing when you witness her suffering.
I don't see a significant distinction.
Yep.
Like it doesn't seem to me to matter like what is the content of suffering or who's suffering the suffering. It's just there's suffering.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
And
go on.
and even it's like even it's subjective or it's it relies on a kind of sense of self or it's still happening. Like the point I'm trying to make is that the suffering happening,
Yes.
and even if it's at some level it's illusional or it's whatever, it's not happening, but there's someone, a self experience suffering.
Mm.
And
Yes.
whether it's happening from a different dimension, it's not happening. I see like this is irrelevant.
Mm.
And maybe there's some clarity of like if that seeing things from different perspective can provide some kind of clarity or to not be complacent in the suffering.
Mm.
I but also suffering happen, and I don't know, I'm not sure if this is like a desire for control or delusional belief that I can do something, but there might be something that can be done.
Mm.
I don't know. And this something that can be done, it doesn't have to be uh, selfing. It can just be what's happening.
Yes. The only reason to look at those that what it is because of the idea that we can not have it, that it can not be there. So if let's put it another way. I mean, this is a bit gross, but nevertheless, let's put it another way. You're suffering, and you get hit by lightning and killed, and you're dead. There's no suffering anymore, is there? So it takes you to be alive to experience suffering. So obviously, it's not external to you. If you were dead, the suffering would be non-existent.
I don't know that.
Okay. Um, And of course, you never can know that. You have to be dead to find out, and then you're not going to know. So, okay. But does it make
And
sense that
and
that
my
if
point is that it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. It's my suffering or it's not my suffering. I can recognize someone's suffering, and I don't need. It's like I don't need to know your kind of suffering, the content of your suffering, how it feels, but I can know that suffering can happen for you. Oh, that's all I need to know. That I don't to conclude that suffering is happening.
hmm. So what about the idea of it not happening? How can we change from happening to not happening?
Why would I change it?
Because it's unpleasant. You surely don't want it.
Do you mean change the suffering or
Yeah.
change the fact that suffering exists?
Well, so one of the things that you said earlier that is running through my mind is that it seems like that suffering has some external source. So if we can
I
recognize,
don't know what's the source of suffering. All I know is that it's here,
yeah, okay,
and people experience that suffering. It doesn't need to be complicated. Just
no,
people
that's right,
suffer.
yeah, okay. So all right, so the source of suffering is easy. The source of suffering is stories that we tell ourselves, thoughts that appear. Simple, but changing that is not simple, is it?
I don't think it's just a story. Stories is just I feel like they are reaction. They are not the whole thing.
Mm. Well, stories are reactions that have their own reaction as well. Okay, so you're feeling bad. The story comes along that you shouldn't be feeling bad, and then you react to that story, and that's where the suffering starts. Reacting to that story that you shouldn't be feeling bad. Now, the first bad that you're feeling might be physical, or it might be associated to some other story, but it doesn't matter. You're feeling bad. You have a story that you shouldn't be feeling bad, then you're suffering. That's the bottom line. That's the way it works. How do we change that? We get rid of those stories that you shouldn't be feeling bad, that you shouldn't be feeling that way. That's not so easy, is it? Because that's based on beliefs that you have. But it's as simple as that. Let's not make it complicated by
So my belief is that suffering is here and shouldn't be here.
yes. So that bit that it shouldn't be here is further suffering. If
So
suffering is here and we accept it fully, we don't fight it, we just accept it, then there is no suffering. There is just whatever stimulated the suffering is still there, but the suffering itself is not. Even if what stimulated it was earlier suffering. But in the case of your grandmother, it's obviously a physical thing that she's reacting to, and that is what's causing her suffering. The reaction to the physical fear, the stories that say, "I wish it would end. It's too much. It's whatever." You know. But that's not the case for you. Your suffering isn't based on a physical thing. Your suffering is based on your interpretation of your grandmother's suffering, amongst other things. It's not as simple as that, of course.
I want to hit pause
Mm.
on this game of life. I just like just log out.
Yep, yep,
Don't continue play this game. It's so
yep.
risky and it's so unnecessary.
And there's no winning. So does
But
that mean,
it's not a single game player. It's multiplayer game. So even if I log out,
yeah.
it's still happening.
But if you log out, you don't know it's happening. You can only reason that it's still happening.
There wasn't a time where the game wasn't not happening.
Mm.
So I can infer that it will continue to happen,
Yeah, yeah. But that's just
even
the
if it
difference, though,
doesn't
isn't it?
happen here.
Mm.
Like when I go to sleep, I don't, the world doesn't
You're logged
stop.
out. Yeah.
The people still continue to suffer.
Mm. But interestingly, even though you know that other people are continuing to suffer, when you go to sleep, we presume, or let's use Bianca's thing about going into a deep anesthetic. Right? Even though on the way into that anesthetic, you can presume that other people will continue to suffer, when you are in that deep anesthetic, you're not thinking about that and you're not suffering. Only when you wake up does the
It
suffering
it's
start up.
like
Yeah.
it, I feel like this is really doesn't matter. It's like there's if we consider like this consciousness or the awareness of suffering is like an event. It can happen in different places, and some places doesn't happen here. It happen here. It's like the location. It doesn't matter.
Mm.
Yeah, I might not feel suffering, but that doesn't it change the net value of suffering in the whole universe. It moves from one place to one place. It's just like a wave of suffering.
Mm. But what's that got to do with you? Why are you hooked into that?
I don't know. I'm just hooked.
The, so that's the crucial point. Why you are connected to that, eh?
Because people seem to be oblivion to the suffering, in kind of self-denial about the suffering,
Mm.
and they continue to perpetuate this fucking suffering for no reason.
Yep, yep. Partly because they're in denial of it. Yes. But why do you perpetuate your suffering?
It doesn't seem like a choice.
And so are we back to that point where it feels a bit like it has some external source for you?
It's vibrating in my body. It's just here. What
Yes.
I'm supposed to do, like
Yeah. Right. So how you feel sure that that vibrating in your body is associated with your experience of your suffering? That was a question, by the way.
it's is it I mean, what if there's just this expression of fuck this shit like happening here? Like, it, why does it have to be different?
Mm.
Like, this is the expression that's coming here.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be different, but it will be different. So it depends on where we look at it from. But of course, it's always changing. So it's never the same. But nevertheless,
Yeah,
that's the,
I'm not saying that
yeah, yeah.
I feel this way 24 hours. It's just, even if I'm not feeling this, I would know that it's not like suffering doesn't exist anymore. I
Mm.
can recognize it. So like, even if I'm not suffering, I can recognize the suffering happening.
Yes, yes, yeah, I get that. Yeah, yeah. I can too. But my reaction to that is different to your reaction. Why?
That's what I'm saying. That's what's happening now. It, maybe in a few hours I would feel calm about it, but now I'm not.
Mm, mm. And so I would imagine that what you're feeling in your body, that trembling or whatever is in your body, is an expression of what you're feeling. We could imagine that it's your body trying to relieve you. It's your body trying to look after itself and get rid of the stress hormones that are floating around or something. It's going to use them up by shaking. But that's all imagination. I don't know if it's true. So what if when you observe suffering in the world, either say on the television or much closer to home in your grandmother, and your response to that is empathy and compassion rather than suffering itself. So sure, you're not going to feel pleasant, but what you're experiencing is directly related to what you observe, and it's not perpetuated beyond the observation. This is a big one. Okay, so it feels like you can have so much compassion for when you're with your grandmother for what she's experiencing. Incredible compassion because you are directly in contact with her suffering. But you leave and you go away and you get involved in something, so you're not remembering your grandmother and her situation. There would be no reaction about that. There would be no suffering on your part. There would not even be any compassion at that moment because you're involved in whatever it is, walking up the street. But when you're with your grandmother, you're feeling incredible compassion that could be seen as suffering because it's so unpleasant. That the intensity of it, but nevertheless, it's not suffering in that it's not it's not the re, it's not the result of trying to escape something. It's a result of being in touch with something. So it's different.
Um, can I say
Yes,
something?
please, yeah.
Because listening to Ramiz, I think it's similar to when I was talking about the big picture. And the big picture is not all the cases of suffering I see. in the world. It's about the mechanism underneath that permeates everything, the mechanism that leads to suffering arising. And it's not so personal. It's in me, it's in every living being.
They talk more about the mechanism.
It's like, I think what I'm hearing is like the capacity of feeling suffering.
Yes, but also the mechanism of rejection, something happening and I reject it.
That creates suffering, yes.
And it's not something that is under my control, that I can reject it or not. Rejection is just happening.
Mm. And it's a pretty normal reaction to reject those things that are unpleasant, isn't it? So Ramiz's grandmother is rejecting what she's experiencing and thus adding to the suffering. Ramiz is rejecting what he sees happening in himself when he sees his grandmother and when he thinks about the suffering in the world. It's that rejection.
I don't think I reject my feelings.
No, 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 no.
I reject what's happening.
It's more like I reject the whole mechanism that leads to arising of rejection.
Mm. And the whole point is you can't control that rejection. It turns up, right?
Yes.
Yet that is what we need to change in order to not suffer.
That's another rejection.
Yes, we reject the rejection. Yes. Yeah. So how do
Maybe the
yeah, go on.
maybe the rejection is just is natural response to an experiment gone wrong. And it's like, holy shit, this is fucking absurd. And if somehow there's enough suffering, the whole project collapse on itself. And maybe like suppressing that fuck this shit is making the suffering continue when it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I know this feeling of rejection. It feels so right.
Mm.
It feels so alive.
Say that again.
It feels alive.
Alive.
Yeah.
Mm. It is a really tricky one. That is absolutely. It was probably the one of the biggest hangovers for me. You know, how do I justify all of the wrongs that are happening in the world, all of the stupidity and the suffering, and how do I all the wars and all of that stuff that just goes on, all of the crazy stuff that I see as wrong.
I don't think it needs justifications. It's just blind.
Mm. But something has changed for me that I can't really put my finger on. There was a point came where when I saw what was happening in Gaza, I used to cry. And then, although it's still horrific, it doesn't touch me in a way that it used to. That's probably not quite the right way to say it, but at a practical level, I guess that's what's happening. So it still doesn't feel good, but I no longer need to cry about it. The absolute, the intensity of it. So what happened? I don't quite know. I can't quite put my finger on what happened, but well, the word that comes to mind is acceptance. It is just the way things are, and it's always going to be just the way things are. I can't do anything about that. So acceptance. Somehow it was acceptance that came along.
Well, it's like there is nothing that I can do about it, but I can reject it.
But reject it all you like, it's still there.
It feels like it. It is the only way I can do. Reject it.
Yeah.
And that's feels right.
Mm. Yeah.
I remember I talk about how I imagined myself living in Warsaw in times of the war, and when there was uprising in the ghetto, and Germans came in with flamethrowers, burning all the buildings to the ground. And if I had a choice to be in this situation and not to suffer and be happy, I wouldn't just. I would just rejection and being unhappy, because this is the adequate reaction. I don't want to be happy in such a situation.
Accepting the situation doesn't mean you're happy with it. So being happy with would presume that you've dissociated from it to a point where you probably need to be in a mental institution or something. So we're not talking about being happy with it. We're talking about it not ripping your guts out every time you see it. So rejection, what you said, is like, that's one way of you making it not personal, not you, by saying it shouldn't be there. Is it? What are you achieving by rejecting it? No, wrong question. So your way of coping with it is to reject it, and what are you, when you say rejecting, are you just saying you're classifying it as wrong? or are you doing something else? How are you not feeling it yourself? Because that's what you're saying when you're saying you wouldn't want to be happy in that, because that means that you're not connected to it anymore.
I was just thinking, I mean, I'm not talking about the Warsaw ghetto, it's like really beyond my imagination. Just, I don't know, when you are in a difficult situation, let's put it like this, or maybe even if you want to resist politically, for example, against the regime, then I think still like this acceptance as a basis could be helpful. I mean, just to first accept that the situation is like that could give you the calmness to take measures, you know, like without being consumed by your, I don't know, by your anger or suffering or fear.
Are we not understanding something, Bianca?
I think right now I feel too much in the body to
Okay.
go into logical explanations. And
All right. Yeah.
I want to say that the suffering is, there's a link between suffering to feeling as a self or a person. But the thing I'm trying to say is that mechanism of the selfing, it can happen or not happen. And that in itself is just a phenomena that is beyond control. It's a blind phenomena in a way.
Mm.
So unless there's you are implying that there's kind of a choice that I can stop that selfing somehow.
No. Yeah. I'm not,
And
but I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
so it's like would you relive your life again without having the knowledge that at some point you're gonna see how illusional it is, that you're gonna live the illusion again of the suffering?
Mm.
Would you choose to do that?
No. Yet I can see how necessary it was that I did do that. But no, I certainly wouldn't want to go through all that again.
But you, as the one who's suffering, doesn't give a shit about seeing it as an illusion. That's my point.
Mm.
Like once you are in the suffering, you are in the suffering.
Yes. Yes. And I'm so involved in the suffering that even when somebody tells me it's an illusion, I can't relate to that. But this is the whole point of this, of this, isn't it? And that is how, well, your question you asked earlier that we need to answer first, and that is there any need to change it? Why do we want to change it? Why would we want to not suffer?
Why would we suffer? What purpose suffering is what benefit it has, like what justify the suffering.
Mm.
Like when I look at someone suffering and I feel compassion and feel connection, is that it? Like does that like change the whole thing? Like as it's never, doesn't really matter.
Mm.
It doesn't
Well, of course it
make
matters.
sense.
But okay, so well, for a start, we all of this stuff is looking at it from our own perspective. So first thing is I accept that I can't do anything about what's outside of me. I can't change the situation in Gaza. I can't change the situation in anywhere where there's a lot of shit going on. That's it. I can't change any of that. I I and then it gets back to control. I don't even have control to change what's going on in me. But I recognize that something might change as a result of this discussion, what's going on. That might allow things to change. But it's not a direct control. It's just possible influence, if you like. So if I could look at it that it is me, that's all I can have any influence on is me. That's not right either, but it's
Can I say something?
yes, please do jump in. Yeah.
Um, so in a lot of points in my life when I've been suffering a lot, when it feels like I share something with someone and then they suffer with me, it makes me feel worse. When they are able to sit with me and calm and hold like more space, so then I'm aware of more space beyond my suffering, then I feel like I can find a better way out of it. You know, and like for me, my mom suffered a lot when I was younger, and so I've always had this, I always have this image of her crying and being like, why am I suffering and why am I alone? And so for my spiritual journey, I always look at that as a reference, like, can I sit with her yet and not be pulled into that and not suffer? And can I do that for a long time? Because she suffered for years. And so that's, so that's always what I'm looking at, like, what do I need to change inside myself so I can maybe feel the vibrations from her suffering in my body, but not mirror her feelings? What do I need to change so I don't feel like I need to suffer with her? Because a lot of times society teaches us that we need to suffer with other people. Like it's disrespectful and not kind to not feel suffering when they feel suffering. So these are things that I've worked on, in myself. But I also try to be real with myself. Like if I can't do it, if I can't hold bigger space to not suffer, then that's fine. I'm not going to beat myself up over it. So I just, so those are different things that I've been working with.
That's a good one. And when you're suffering and the person you're with is hooked into your suffering and they feel suffering and then you feel more suffering because they're also suffering, the inverse can happen. When you're not hooked into that suffering and you're able to hold a bigger space yourself, even though they are suffering, they're as likely to be influenced out of their suffering by your holding space in the same way that they were influenced into their suffering because of your suffering. So we do have an effect on each other in that way. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
I gathered my thoughts and I can answer. I don't remember the question well, so uh, hmm. What Leonard was talking about is, I think, how I was conditioned also, that it's not useful to be overcome by suffering, and it's like you have to put it in the brackets, or put it to the shelf and start doing, and then you can help. And it's true, but I think it's also this is why I have so much bottled anger and rejection, that it's like ripping me apart. So it was with the noble purpose, but it's not, I don't know, not healthy.
I didn't mean acceptance in the sense of rejecting it or like suppressing it or something like that.
It was also when I was talking about this imagined being in Warsaw, and my friend said that if I was not disturbed, if I was happy in this situation, I could help better. You know, like hiding the Jews or anything.
So if Ramiz was not, if you were not affected by your suffering in the same way, and not affected as much by your grandmother's suffering, and I'm not talking about being happy, I'm just talking about acceptance of what is, then I would imagine that what you would be offering to your grandmother would be something that would help her to suffer less. You would be offering that space, holding that space for her, allowing her to express whatever. Yeah.
In what form? Because I think I can sit with her. I don't run away. I don't try to change her. I feel like I can be with her. And maybe it has some effect on her.
So do you meditate when you're with her, or get into an expansive?
Yeah,
yeah,
I do. And at some point, I felt this feeling. There's this somehow I felt like time stopped somehow, and I felt like she's inside me, or
Yep.
I felt like I am the space she's in.
Mm. Mm.
And I was able to sit in this feeling for a few minutes, and it felt so close, and it felt like nothing is actually wrong.
Mm. Beautiful. Yes.
And my mind is going like, what the hell is happening? What is this? uh, and I was trying to make something out of it, maybe.
Mm. Mm. So when you,
But it didn't change reality. Like,
oh, do you know that? It didn't change how your grandmother was experiencing something? It certainly
in
did.
this exact
Yeah.
in this exact moment, she was smiling.
Mm.
It was a quiet moment. It
Mm.
was um,
And your quietness would definitely have an influence on how she was feeling, especially if you were in contact and holding her hand, say, you know, having that physical touch. She would experience something as well. Yeah. At that moment, there was no suffering either for you or for her. As brief as it might have been.
but also there's times when I actually there would be suffering, and I would actually feel angry at her,
Oh, okay. For suffering.
and that was like surprising,
Yeah. Yep.
and I felt this need to deny, like, I'm not angry at her, she's in pain, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there's this feeling of like, stop complaining, like, and but then when I sit with this, like, this anger, like, it's not for about her, it's just for the fact that her conditioning is just, it's like she's product of the conditioning
Mm.
that perpetuating it her own suffering.
Mm. And the reality is that that's not likely to change, eh? For her, I mean. It's possible, of course, but that conditioning is huge, isn't it? It's gone on for a long, long time and it's very entrenched. Not so for you, but for her.
No, I am the same.
Yeah, okay. Hmm. Yeah, I guess I was just saying, but you're young and you've got a chance to change it. She's old and doesn't have much chance to change it. It's still possible, of course, anything is possible, but it's not likely. Unless you know, maybe if you got into that space you mentioned there enough times, she would go, oh, okay, maybe it would be a chance for her to learn to do that. We're never too old, but it would take some kind of intervention, wouldn't it, to change the conditioning? And that intervention is active with you, but not so with her. Would that be right? You're her
I
only
don't know.
chance. You're her only chance of intervention, probably.
That's a huge responsibility. I can't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm not meaning it in that way, but yeah, you're right. Yeah. And if
And
that
I
happens, it happens.
feel
Go on.
it feels arrogant to think this way. Like I don't know how even to help myself. Like
Mm. But that magic moment that you had that you mentioned then, there's no arrogance involved in that, was there? Arrogance only appears when you think that, you know, you've got some special status or some special ability or something like that. But that just happened, didn't it?
yeah,
Mm.
maybe I would do a miracle. I don't know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, it could be explained as a miracle if something happened for sure. But yeah. So the miracle was that you had that moment. Now that was the interesting thing was, um, what 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 happened that allowed that moment to come into existence. That's that's it. That's a key for me. That's something for you and for your grandmother. We don't really know. It's not like you controlled it. It's not like you said, "Oh, I'm going to do that." But you just found yourself in that place, didn't you? And she picked up on it and she was smiling. That's wow, that's beautiful. How did you get into that state? Well, not how, that's the wrong word. What happened for that state to come into existence for you for that short moment?
I don't know.
Mm.
There was a moment. Uh, I don't know. It's kind of funny. She was she was in much pain and she was unable to move. And while she was like laying down in bed, she said something like in the effect of like not literally, but like I'm so tired of this. Like she's like, and then she looked at me, kind of like she was looking for my reaction to this. It's like it, it's kind of like she's looking like if she's a child and she said something like naughty, and she's looking at me if I'm gonna react to her like holy shit, I did something.
Mm.
And like she's so concerned about how she gonna affect us.
Yep. Exactly what Christy was saying, you know, yes. She's going to feel worse if you feel worse because she feels responsible for your feeling worse. Yeah. And so in this case, in this moment, you were not affected in a negative way by anything. Yeah.
No, I actually find it kind of funny. Like she's looking at me like if she can say that, like
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
can't
She was
say that.
being a bit mischievous. Yes. Yeah. Mm.
I think moments like that can make it help you be more open to more moments like that. And eventually you might find you have more choice when suffering arises.
Yes, that's a big one. Knowing that that happened also lets you know that it can happen. So yes, and as Christy says, the more it happens, the more it will happen. And it was a lovely moment, wasn't it? Just beautiful. Mm.
I tried also do what you told me about, like syncing my breathing with her, and it didn't work. She has very inconsistent way of breathing. It's like I can't predict how she's breathing,
Mm.
but I tried. But whenever I try, we both feel sleepy and she falls asleep.
Yeah, one of the kind of unspoken things about that is that even the attempt to do it is a very intimate contact. There's that synchronization going on that yeah, you are intensely focused on her, and as a result of that, that connection, that unspoken stuff is there. It doesn't matter about whether you're successful or not, but it's good if you are successful. But if she's breathing like that, there's something in itself, that she's not breathing in a regular way. She's breathing randomly. Mm.
She's also, I don't feel like she's open to express her feelings. She's like, she would complain about her leg, but she won't open up about her frustration or her sadness, and I can feel that, but she's not, she would like rather cry by herself
Mm.
uh, than with us or with
Yes,
me.
she doesn't want to infect you with that. Yeah.
And it's like I see her suffering. She's like going inside herself in some way, and like I can't reach her, or
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. She may be, just without consciously doing it, of course, but she may be intuitively trying to protect you by doing that, withdrawing like that. But who knows? I mean, it could be anything. Yeah. Does she get up and walk around, or is she just constantly lying down?
yeah, she's lying down. She can't walk.
Okay. Does have you has what about elevating her legs? Get her legs up on a couple of pillows so they're higher than the rest of the body. See, when we walk around, a lot of the muscle movement in the legs cleans the legs out, the lymphatic system and so on, they clean out. And if she's just lying down and not walking, she's just going to get a buildup of fluid in the legs, which is certainly not going to make it better. But maybe if you elevated the legs, that might help them drain a little bit and take the pressure out of her legs. Now, if you put her two or three pillows underneath her heels or her calves and got her legs higher than the rest of the body, it might relieve something. I don't know, but it's just a thought that occurs. Yeah, if she can't walk around, if she could walk around, that would be much better, because that muscle action kind of pumps the legs clean, gets some of the fluid up. The only way for it to get up against gravity is with the muscle action, or if she's lying down, elevate them. Yeah.
She has issue with the nerves in her leg. It's like she's experiencing this electricity in her leg.
Yeah.
She can't move it, and it's painful.
Mm. Yeah, my heart goes out to her. What a terrible situation. Mm. Mm. How have you been going, Christy?
I've been all right. Pernilla and Todd had a session today, and they started with dancing. And I thought I would, but actually I didn't. Like, it felt like the music hurt my skin. Like, it was just painful. But later on, I was able to sort of do some release on my own, and it just felt like a lot of childhood stuff came out. So
Good. Yeah.
yeah. And so I've just been trying to not push myself too much, but also keep in touch, to keep moving along.
Yep, keep a bit of momentum. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no point, of course, in pushing yourself. It's the opposite way to where you really should be going.
Yeah.
So it sounds like things are happening for you. There is movement.
Yeah, my experience of like not the relative, I guess, has changed after I talked to you and after the retreat. So that has been, I mean, I don't know, I guess it's all right, because I mean, before it was like, if I looked and paid attention, it was like things were arising and disintegrating just constantly. And I have spent a couple years trying to not see that, but now it's, but I've still been trying to keep in touch and let something progress so that it didn't upset me as much. But now it's sort of like, there's just like, I mean, it's only happened a few times when I walk my dog in the park because it's easier there. But it's like a few points of sensation. And it's like there's just sort of like emptiness or darkness underlaying or overlaying everything. So my mind just is like, oh, it's like I'm a walking constellation of stars in space. I mean, that's not what it looks like, but that's the closest
I
that
get
the
it.
mind comes up
Yeah.
with. So
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
yeah, so I just it's like there's this big gap of things that I have to, that I didn't know to work on when I was first starting, and now like where my like sort of non-dual experiences, like the stuff I have to work on, and the non-dual, it's like there's a big gap there. And so I'm just, but Pernilla said something about how you have to help your body feel comfortable with these things so that something unpleasant doesn't happen. I don't remember how she put it, but
Mm.
I've just been, like trying to do that, because when I was younger and focusing a lot on just presence and stuff, like I definitely didn't pay attention to feelings or sensations. So
Yeah. That's almost a new discovery for you.
yeah, it is. Like I sometimes to feel stuff in my body, like it takes me a while. Like I don't come up with anything immediately, and so I think, oh, I guess I don't even know, but it takes me a while to feel things and to. So I'm not sure if I should be trying to build up awareness of inner sensations or just go with what I have.
No, yeah, no, definitely going with what you have is the way to go, trying to do something like anything else is effort. Yeah.
Effort, effort really stresses me out. So it's just because I found out recently that I'm autistic, and my friend sent me this article about how a lot of autistic people don't have a strong awareness of interior sensation, and I was like, oh, I don't want to work on more stuff. Like, but so I just try to work on like whatever's right in front of me that's not too hard in the moment.
Yep. Yeah, me too. That's the way it happens. You know, we just work with whatever life presents, whatever comes up. That's all there is. You know, we don't need to go looking for something. We don't need to fabricate anything. Life will definitely offer us enough to keep going.
Mhm. But and of course, any feedback you ever have on stuff I say I'm always open to that. So
Yeah, that's it. So a lot of the stuff with, I mean, every one of us has our own unique characteristics, and some that might fall into the autistic spectrum. Quite frankly, I think almost everybody is on the spectrum somewhere. And just a matter of how far down or how far along we are as to what happens. But you know, one of the things that the brain works differently, you know, for people, and if so, those people who are a long way along the autistic spectrum might have trouble, for example, reading where other people are from their body language, and for other people, it's really easy. They can do that without even thinking about it. They don't even think about it. So, you know, it's just like we all have our own things, you know. Like one of the things that I recognize is that, I mean, am I on the spectrum? I don't know, maybe. Good chance. I've often thought I am, but who knows? But what I do recognize is that I need time to myself sometimes. I need to be able to just be alone, and it's kind of like recharge, you know, you know, just get over the exhaustion of being with other people all the time. That kind of thing happens. So, you know, it's like, yeah, everybody's got their own particular things. We got to be careful about, if we do label them, to recognize that it's not about the label. It's only about what the label might be pointing to, what that means. And so if, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're on the spectrum or not on the spectrum. What does matter is what you feel and what your experiences are. Yeah. So there, any effort for anybody is not smart. That's resisting, isn't it? Really, effort is resisting. Yeah.
I think the diagnosis just helped me because I didn't realize, because recently I found that I need to look at my habits, to sort of recognize those and to unravel them or something. And I didn't realize that I had built up so many habits around filtering and giving off the right body language and watching other people's body language. Like I didn't realize those were all habits that I had built. And you know, and I've also built like little models of how to generate more thoughts and feelings, because in college people told me I didn't have enough opinions and I didn't have enough emotion on my face. So I built little models based on people that I liked and people at church to generate more opinions and feelings and put it on my face. And you know, so I've got to go through, and I mean, I don't know if I have to. I'm just watching, you know, so it's just something to be aware of. So
Little experiment, isn't it? That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
those models can be useful, and if any of them are particularly useful, you'll integrate them and they'll just become automatic, you know, which is what we all do all our life, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I have a friend, a female, Aspi, and I know, and I admire her how she has so much skill in conversation with people and making friends, but it is all learned. So I know how it goes, and I don't think it becomes I think for her it still feels like it's not me.
Okay, so she hasn't integrated it. She applies it when she does it. Yeah.
And I also heard for Aspis that it's that for them it's very new when they can be themselves without this whole model. At least female Aspis.
Yeah. I rather imagine, and it's purely my imagination, that, for example, in her family situation, she doesn't apply those models because, or what she does with where she does use them, she's not thinking about it, right? Or with friends, that people, once she gets to know somebody, you know, they become less important, those models, maybe. That's just speculation on my part. I don't know. Yeah.
It probably depends on your culture and the people you're around.
Yeah, and if she's in social situations rather than work situations, it could be, you know, a different thing there. Yeah, who knows?
Oh, I'm adopted, and I've been around my adopted family in the last few years, and my models don't work for them. So it's pretty stressful to me. So, because they're a different culture. Like I grew up around white people in the US, and they're Samoan, and it's a totally different culture. So my models don't work, and it's very stressful. So
So what do you do? How do you,
I hold still more.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess any model you build would be culture specific. So of course, because of the differences that we all have, yeah. Which is absolutely fascinating. I find, you know, the way different cultures, different cultural influences, you know, affect people. Yeah, it is. I wonder how much Irish is in Don.
I don't know. It never interested me to get my DNA done or anything like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just thinking to myself, if I do that thing that Christy was talking about, but not in the same. I was just thinking it through just now. I don't do it that way because I do feel people, as it were. But at the same time, I was thinking I'm constantly, I don't know, like constantly trying to measure how I respond and try to control other people's response to me in case they get angry is what I'm doing. And so constantly monitoring how I'm behaving so that the other people, watching other people's faces and so on, to see if I can keep myself safe, I suppose, and changing how I behave. So like behaving spontaneously. I mean, maybe I am, right? I don't know, behaving spontaneously because there's no me here. I don't know what that even means, but yeah, anyway, it feels like I'm constantly just trying to,
Yep, yep. And
yeah,
you can see quite clearly who you don't want to get angry, don't you? Can't you?
yeah, more and more, yeah. I mean, more at work and stuff like that. But oh, sorry, are you saying the other people, or are you saying it's something to do with me?
Oh, I'm saying it's your dad that you don't want to get angry.
Oh, that. Oh, yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. But it's fascinating. Fascinating is a strange word to use, but I mean, how many people that gets projected onto, including women, including nice people, including it's really my dad gets that expectation of rage about to erupt any second is projected onto almost everybody
Yeah, yeah.
all the time. It's really fascinating, yeah, how
Well, he taught you to
that,
live in a state of hypervigilance, didn't he?
yeah. And I've been aware of it for so long, and I don't know how to. People always go, just bring awareness to it, and that's going to be. I'm like, I've been aware of
Yeah,
it for
yeah.
fucking
Like Ramiz
decades.
was saying earlier, yeah, yeah.
I don't know what to do, So yeah, I've been aware, yeah. It's a bit weird. Yeah, I'm aware. Yeah, really, it's slightly frustrating because I've been aware of it, and I suppose sometimes I bring awareness to it more if I'm doing some kind of a breath work weekend or some kind of a therapy thing or something, and when I bring more awareness to it, just to see, I can just feel it like, oh my gosh, and I'm so strongly I expect, especially like now. Okay, so I know you've heard me say this before, but the more I talk, the more I think people are going to get frustrated with listening to me, and it builds up. Um, but yeah, I have this memory. There's this place I go for breath work at the weekend sometimes, and the lady who runs it is so nice and sweet. But I remember talking to her afterwards one time, and I was just could feel this. After a fairly short time, I just was expecting her to explode and jump at me and just attack me basically with fury. And that happens almost anybody if
Mm.
I talk for too long, or I just feel that everywhere. It's projected onto everyone.
That's
Like
pretty
anyway, got off on
amazing.
a massive tangent there, but there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's pretty amazing given somebody that talks like you,
Yeah,
because you
I
get
know. Yeah, I
going and
think if I
you
was
can go like a train, and
you
yet
better off as like Ramiz, and I said nothing. I'd be much better strategy, wouldn't it? Yeah, I was
no,
afraid.
well, who knows
Yeah,
what'd be
yeah,
better? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I find that that's an interesting like contradiction. There you are worried about the more you talk, the more people are going to build up feelings about it, and yet you do talk like that. You talk like a train going flat out sometimes.
I don't know what it. Yeah, it's weird now that you say it. Yeah, so, but maybe I'm just trying to get people to understand me or something, or something like
Oh,
that, because
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not
Testing them
something
out,
like
maybe. Maybe you want them to get angry with you.
that.
I doubt it, but who knows? Yeah.
No. Um, I want people. I don't know. I'm trying to explain myself because I'm starting off from a position of that I'm not good enough, or that's a very small definition of it. Like I'm just worthless, or I'm just whatever. So I'm trying to explain myself or excuse myself or something, or get people around to my side. That's
Mm,
the initial thing I'm trying to say. I'm not too bad. I
yeah.
promise, kind of thing.
So the other thing is that what you're wanting to get people past this point where they might get angry at you or explode. You're wanting them to get to so you're wanting your dad to be accepting of you.
Yeah. And then and then there's a point. There's a place. I think one thing I'm doing. I think I've discovered recently. I think is that I'm trying to because I think I'm so terrible and worthless and whatnot. I'm trying to explain myself, and I expect to get this negative reaction. I want to explain myself to someone so thoroughly that I can weed out all the potential places where they will disapprove of me until I get through all of them. And it almost never works, but it has worked once anyway. And then when I got kind of weeded through all of those things, that this person who I recently met, I discovered after about a year and a half that they just were not going to be angry at me and disapprove of me no matter what I said.
Mm.
It allowed me to relax finally.
Yep. And so with them, you don't talk so much.
Um, I still do, but I find it easier and more relaxed or something, and I can listen much better for longer
Coming
and
from
so
a
on.
different place, maybe you're not
But
testing
I'm
them
more
so much.
more
Yeah.
spontaneous. I don't feel I have this weird feeling for me of it doesn't matter if what I say, or it doesn't matter if things are weird or go wrong, because it's going to be fine tomorrow. It's not going to be
Mm.
it's not going to mess up if things go wrong, which is very unusual
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
for me to get.
Well, I'd like to think you're that way with me, but you maybe you're not, eh? I mean, do you feel that I don't accept you as you are completely? Am I doing something wrong?
No, you see, that's the thing. Of course, you're not doing something wrong. Yeah, but I don't know. There's something I don't know. I would say I need, and it's weird, and it's like it's yeah. I suppose I'm very sensitive about that. About this in some way that and I'm asking for too much, but basically, what it seems that I need is people to understand. So it's weird. I don't know. I'm just saying it. Um, yeah, I don't know what it is. If you, maybe because I feel so guilty for being so kind of depressed and anxious all my life, or something like that. That if you don't have, I don't know fully, I don't know you that well, Vince, I guess, but if you don't have that experience of being depressed for decades and being completely useless and a failure and all these things and really self-critical and stuff, that you possibly really don't get where I am, or where I've been. And in that sense, there's always that potential that you'll be judging me in the back of your mind, going, he's a bit fucking lazy. He should have tried harder. He should really, he should stop complaining. He shouldn't be so anxious. Why doesn't he get his shit together, for fuck's sake? And there's a little bit of, potential for that always with people, unless they really have been fucking there for so long that they really get it.
Yeah.
And they go, oh yeah, I know what it means to be depressed for more than a decade and my whole life to have gone past. And not be able to do the most basic of things, and be so anxious that I can barely function at all, and so on, and so that the potential, my fear of being criticized is so strong, I suppose, that even with you, and you're wonderful, and there's lots of wonderful people, but that I kind of think back of his mind, someplace he's thinking, would that guy ever fucking just get his shit together, this kind of thing. There's a little bit that I'm projecting that completely. I don't know, and I'm kind of rationally, I'm fairly sure you're not doing that.
If it is there, I'm not aware of it. But yeah, okay.
Yeah. Of course, yeah. It's a strange one.
Not only do I accept you as you are, but I actually like you. That's pretty weird, isn't it? How
That's
could you
pretty weird.
I like you? Are you a likable person?
It's weird.
Maybe it's because of my weirdness that I like you. That's what it is.
It might be. Sometimes I feel that with people, and I don't know. I know it's true, kind of rationally speaking. I just don't know how to feel it most of the time. It's funny, and maybe it's.
I would go as far as to say that without you realizing it, what you've done is you've developed a very likable character. So I say most people probably like you because you are likable. You go on a lot, but that's probably only under these circumstances. But you're still very likable. You're open. You don't hide stuff. I like that. That's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah.
It's a weird one. I don't know how.
Maybe I don't even want you to change because you might not be likable when you change.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know what I'd be like. Yeah, I just but yes, as I know I've said this so many times. Like rationally, I kind of know that's true, but at some emotion, I mean, and then rationally, I kind of tell myself if I'm into non-duality, there's no people and there's no connection, there's no that. I don't know what that really means, but some at whatever emotional level, it just feels like the universe exists and then I'm separate from it because I don't connect with anyone, and I'm just alone, and it's weird. No matter how many people tell me, and like I was out with friends at the weekend I haven't seen in a little while, and they were being kind and nice and reassuring as well. And they couldn't believe, because I pretty did say to them it was just the three of us, but how I feel, and they were kind of almost upset that I didn't know they loved me, or I didn't feel it. And I kind of don't. I believe them when they tell me, but I don't feel it. Um,
Yeah,
and
because
they
you're
were
not
like,
worthy of it, are you, really?
hmm?
You're not worthy of it. That's why you don't feel it.
I think so, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
your father was right all along. You're a worthless piece of shit, you know?
Seemingly, yeah. Yeah. Um,
Why do you smile when I say that? I mean, that's probably closer to the truth than anything else I've said. And then you smile.
because I know it's a joke from you, because that's, yeah.
Well, it's I'm saying it in a way that's kind of lighthearted, but it's very true. It's not a joke.
It's yeah, but the way you say it is jokey, but and I know you don't mean it or feel it or something. I think I know you don't feel it, but
There's no
um,
malice in it. That's what makes it a bit
yeah,
weird. Yeah.
that's I guess the sort of thing I don't feel. But there's some, yeah, there's some but if I feel into it in a different from a different direction, what being worthless means,
Mm.
it feels kind of intense. There's this, and I even feel guilty for feeling it almost, but there's a sense that yeah, that my purpose on the planet, as it were, was to be what my parents wanted, not to be me, and that the me, spontaneous whatever that's here, is
Okay.
just unwanted down to the last ounce.
You just said my parents, so it was your mother was involved in that as well. Does your mother also feel that way about you?
She didn't. Well, no, I suppose you're right. Yeah, she didn't fully, but she didn't. I guess what's the word? She didn't prevent anything my dad was doing, sort of thing. She
Right.
didn't
Yes.
stand up for
Yeah.
me.
She was a bit complicit. Yeah, but
A
even
bit
by,
like
yeah,
she was afraid of him, understandably. He wasn't physically violent, but he was really angry and aggressive and all
he
the rest
was.
of it.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So I have this, since I'm rambling on about it, I have this, there's this, I mentioned this a few times to people every now and then. There's a song by Massive Attack called Protection. And there's a line in there that says, I'm not sure if it said this here before. The line in there that says, I stand in front of you and take the force of the blow. I don't know why it says that, but it just brings a tear to my eye going, yeah, that's what I love you means in some sense, potentially. And I kind of feel my mother never stood in front of me. She never protected me from my dad. And so when I thought later, I thought, what's that phrase, I love you mean? I'm like, nothing. It means
Yeah.
fucking nothing. And I genuinely feel like I don't know what that means.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I get that. I get what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah, I've had lots of thoughts about that one, and I have no conclusions. Yeah, it's a weird one. Yeah.
So I've almost never, I almost never feel it then. When I do like meta practice and these Buddhist things, I'm like, don't know what you're talking about. And they go, feel into your heart. I'm like, what? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Total mystery. I have no idea. No feelings. It's like a piece of concrete.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very strange. Yeah.
Can't get through to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
No. Anyway.
Yeah. I want to see. Oh yeah, Christy. You were messaging about Chelsea. Yeah. I don't know if you know Chelsea, Vince. She's somebody that Angela was recently interviewed, and she did a double barrel with why don't you do a double barrel with Angela, Vince? So you should invite yourself along. But anyway, so Angela did a double barrel with Chelsea, and he interviewed her and stuff recently. She'd come up on YouTube a few times as a non-duality person. I listened to her. Half the time I don't know what she's even talking about, but it just sounds nice, so I just listen sometimes. And but I know she had done she's an internal family systems therapist professionally, sort of thing, and then she has this non-duality bit that she does as well, kind of this whatever guidance thing. So I signed up to see her. I saw her on Monday, and because I was interested in that. I guess the thing I said here when I was here the last time that kind of has genuinely worried me a bit during my the last couple of years, but during my life, that like various kinds of therapies and meditations and non-duality awakening stuff seems to benefit people. Like even if we were talking to Ramiz about going into a meditative state or calming down or something. I've never calmed down from meditation. So many therapies I've done don't work, or else they work once and then they get unraveled again and they stay unraveled for years. And I'm going, there's something really screwed up about my system that's determined to like, I guess, never be in the present moment and stuff. Anyway, so yeah, it's just my IFS people had sort of said lack of access to self energy, which is a weird thing, but that's self with the capital S kind of means lack of access to the present moment. So I'm on an awakening path where I can't ever be in the present moment. That sounds like a failure, doesn't it? I mean, it might sound like a joke, but it's freaking scary, you know, because I don't know how to, yeah, it's ridiculous. So anyway, I saw her anyway, and she was very reassuring and kind, and you know, and we had a good session, and she was kind of going, "Oh, I don't see anything here that's blocking you. You seem awake enough to, or, you know, present enough to see all these things that you're doing," and so on, which was nice. Then of course, towards the end, she was recommending reparenting all my parts, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's flipping hard for me to be able to be adult enough or whatever, be together enough to
there's got to be an adult in the room before you can do that, and there's no adult in the room for you, is there?
Yeah, most of the time there isn't, hardly ever. Yeah, I was even thinking about this morning just now, and it's like I'm trying to kind of step back from the I'm a bit sorry for myself and sad this morning feeling, and it's really hard to step back from that. It feels like, and again, what it came up was the definition of being a parent that I got from my dad, where everything was extremely hard and every standard had to be met, and the world was really scary and everything had to be really hard work. And the responsibility of being that kind of parent feels like so intense and exhausting, because there's so much criticism in the system from his definition of how to do things.
If you were to fall on the floor in a slump of how can I put it, self-pity or whatever, you know, you just kind of collapse into this slimy mess on the floor, totally without any ability to do anything other than that. Would your father soften at that? Would you ever get soft with you? Did he get soft when you were sick?
He was soft. He was very compassionate and soft at certain times, strangely enough. But I don't know if did it matter how I was behaving. He would just, I suppose, if he himself kind of happened to calm down, he could be very kind. And otherwise, the only thing he could do was just keep him at bay if he was feeling angry or anxious or whatever he was feeling.
Which was most of the time?
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating now, but it feels like I was on the go. There was the simmering kind of potential for it pretty well all the time.
Oh, yeah. And as a kid, of course, you'd feel like it was you that was doing it to him. Just by your mere presence, you provoked him.
Yeah, you could say that you'd feel like it was, but I mean, he'd fucking tell you it was. He'd tell you it was you. Because he'd shout at you personally, and then he would explain it to you in very clear terms why it was your fault and why you were lazy and good for nothing and all those things, on top of being angry.
Yeah. And that happened all the way through, eh? Even when you were really, really young?
Yeah, I have sort of, I could say, memories, which may be unreliable, but going back to before I can actually remember, from just going down into the unconscious a little bit, or substances that sort of consistent with, you know, so way back to the age of 1 or 1.5, it feels like there was real fear.
Yeah. And look, there's no such thing as unreliable. Whether it was factual, whether it actually happened, or whether you imagined it happening, makes no difference whatsoever, right? You still responded, and that's what we're talking about, that response that's ingrained. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, something I've come across the last 12 months, I was looking for fear stuff for a long time, going, why am I so afraid? What the hell? What have I not noticed? What have I not seen? I'd seen the general fear of being shouted at when I was 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. And like, well, that's, you know, it's not fun, but it's not terrifying.
We'll live with it.
And then one session, it was strange. I did an MDMA assisted session last September, and I was so like often happens, still didn't get me down through the confusion. And I was confused and blank for the whole session. And about 3 days later, I did a focusing session with this girl I do focusing with, and she helped me to go down through and to find just real terror down in my system from just, the memory or the feeling that I almost died from, whatever that was, rage or something. And that was, I can still feel it in my system now. So, so there's that sort of implication that death is potential result of me provoking someone.
Yep,
And
yep, yep. And you can
and
see
also the worth, it goes back to the worthlessness thing very quickly, which is that there's this reaction. I know it's not, wouldn't be a verbal reaction if I was that age, but I almost died there. It's about a 50-50 chance that I'm still here. And that there was no one came to help, and I basically have no worth whatsoever in the world. That's what it feels like from that experience.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. And of course, as a young child, especially right down around the 1, 2, 3-year-olds, everything's a matter of survival, So
Yeah.
that feeling like you're going to die, that's very real. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And one thing that occurred to me, and I just want to throw it out there. I don't know whether it's real because it's only my fantasy, but you've done I've said this before, you've done so much different therapies and different modalities that you've everything, and of course they've all failed. And I'm thinking that maybe every time you take on something new like that, what you're looking for in them is proof that you're irredeemable.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. I don't know. Yeah. I never thought of it like that. I don't really even think, I mean, I'm very good at assigning negative kind of motivations to myself or whatever, but I don't see that one right now. I just, but I think maybe it's possible. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I started until fairly recently, I suppose. I think I started everything with great optimism and energy, and I put lots and lots of time and energy and lots of time
but you
into
don't
everything.
Expect anything to get you there, do you? Nothing's going to get you there, no matter what.
Well, and that's a learned thing. I didn't start off like that in my 20s or 30s. I really expected things to get me there when I started. I genuinely did. And I really went in, optimistically going, I'm doing this, and I'm really cheerful and happy because I'm doing this kind of therapy and doing this kind of meditation. I expect it's going to have the results that people say because other people get benefits. I'm doing it. I'm really happy I'm doing it. And I can understand things and I can see things. It's only after, like, to be honest, it was, what I found many times with therapists is like, there was kind of a threshold after like a year and a half or 2 years when I kind of noticed the expression on their faces would kind of change, and they'd be repeating the same thing over and over. And I go, this person has run out of all their resources. They have nothing else to offer me. And they're they're losing hope for this process that they've told me is working.
Yeah, and they'll be relieved when you go away.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had to, sometimes, and I've so many different ones like that. And I kind of, there's several ones like that. The Jungian analyst, after 5 years, she shrugged her shoulders and told me I didn't believe in the self. And 2 internal family systems people told me I didn't have access to self, enough access. The neurofeedback guy, after 60 sessions, people normally do 20 sessions. And he was going, mate, this works so well every single day you come in here, but by the time you come back the following week, it's unraveled. I don't know why that's happening. It never happens for most people. You're a very good candidate. I don't know why it happens, but you need to stop spending your money on this because it's just not working. So I just, after several of those things over years, I'm like, what the fuck is happening here that's unraveling the stuff that I'm doing?
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that you would get some value that you would undo fairly quickly. Yeah.
You can see me unraveling it on almost on purpose kind of thing, you mean, or something?
Yeah, not consciously, of course, but
yeah,
but it feels like because you've got something to prove, and that is that you're hopeless. You've got to confirm your dad's view of you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know how. I don't see myself doing that exactly, but
well, of course, whatever's going on is something you don't see, isn't it?
Yeah, something
I'm not saying that's it. It's just that, it's logical that you wouldn't be able to see whatever is going on. If you could see it, it would be finished.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well, I suppose. I mean, there's one little piece I see. I'm not sure if it's all of it or something, but that I sometimes feel like if I am okay, then I'm genuinely alone then. Like if I have something to tell people about, complain about, at least I can get people to feel something for me, or feel, even if it's only, even if it's only sympathy, at least it's something. Whereas
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
This is a way of keeping in contact with people, and a better contact than you get with a lot of people actually in social situations, because you're talking about real stuff, aren't you? So yeah.
Yeah, proper stuff. Whereas if I say I'm okay, if you ask me how I am and I go I'm okay, then I feel I'm back to being. I mean, already I'm on my own anyway, but I'm back to being on my own, and the potential for connection is gone.
So if you get okay, I'm never going to see you again. Fuck.
It feels like that a little bit, yeah. And I think my mother was a bit like that. I think it was a bit like she'd pay attention when you were struggling to certain emotions, probably not to anger and stuff. She wouldn't like that kind of stuff. But if you were sad, she'd pay attention. But if you didn't complain, she'd leave you on your own. So and she wasn't much maybe as into boisterousness or cheerfulness. So the way you got connection is by being sad a little bit.
Being the way you are. Yeah, not
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
But one of my first memories is of kind of noticing that my mother wasn't connecting with how I felt, and I really wanted her to realize how I was feeling, and she wouldn't, or she couldn't sort of attune, I suppose is the word, isn't it? Attunement they call it. But
of course, there's no chance you can fix these up with your mum or your dad now because they're gone, eh?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, you know, I know it sounds like a joke, but I'm sick to death of hearing myself say these things. I'd prefer to be over it, to be okay. But yeah,
don't worry about it from my point of view. I don't mind you repeating yourself, and I don't mind you going on and on either, you know.
Thank you, yeah. Because I do come on here, and I love coming on. I do come on here, like this morning I was here, and I was going, I really like spending time here, and you know, some other non-duality groups too. It's kind of soothing in some way. It's like a little bit calming. Maybe I connect with the sort of slightly lack of ego vibe that's going on. You know what I mean? It's like calming. And but then I go, what am I going to say? It's the same old shit I said last week. I wish I had something cheerful to say this week, something like progress. I don't know. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like things are changing underneath, but the story that I have on top is the same. Like I've even had, you know, like a story on top that I investigated and found like a more true story underneath, but then like I forgot it. So all I can say is the story that I started with. I mean, like later, if I were to talk about it or share it, like the truer story underneath, it's gone out, remember? So I only have like the top story left.
Yeah.
I don't know if it happens to you, but
maybe that's the case. I mean, I tell myself off like for so many things, you know. If I only like telling negative stories, like I said, because I just want people to be sorry for me, and that's all I want. But I do have a small few examples here and there in the last year or whenever or longer when things went well, and I told people about the things that were going well, and I was very cheerful about them. And I'm like, wow, that's like I've told some people so many times about when I went to Angelo's retreat last July, the online one, and I was really clear glimpse of something, and I'm really happy about that. And I told people about that cheerfully. And I would like, you know, if that stuff continued, I'd be talking about that. I don't think I'm determined to that was really proper, you know, seeing through stuff and clarity and stuff. And I was really happy about that, and I want that too. Yeah. And I think for longer periods when I feel a bit better, I do emphasize that more cheerful stuff. And it's so as I say, yeah, when I'm in the state of being negative, I go, oh, it must be my fault. I'm just perpetuating this because I'm in a pattern of complaining. But I don't do it when things are going well. I don't think. It's weird. But yeah, that pattern, I don't know what's happening unconsciously that's bringing it. There's something about fear of presence, and that there's this the hypervigilance thing. I find something like that being afraid of the present moment seems to bring me back away from whatever I don't know.
So each of these little glimpses that you get, do they? Well, of course, as soon as I say that, I answer my own question. Of course, you undo them as well, don't you? So I would say to people, oh, these little glimpses, they change you. And then eventually there's a bit of an accumulation of change, but you kind of undo them, don't you? So that they don't accumulate.
That's what I'm afraid is happening. And I don't want to undo. So you know what I mean? It's weird to say I undo. Who does the undoing? But I'm almost. I may have said, which way did I say this the last time? It feels like I, who I'm talking to you now, like the seeker, the one who wants to feel better. I'm saying I want to feel better. I feel like there's mechanisms in here. There's unconscious patterns that are undoing this, and I can't
Yeah.
see
And
who
I
or what is doing
yeah.
that.
So when I say you this, you that, whatever, I'm not talking about any intention or anything like that.
Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
unraveling that goes on that I can't put my
Mm.
finger on. And it's a weird I mean, like I said, yeah, I've described like whatever I saw last July, and I've seen it, you know, when I went to see Angelo again in real life in November, there was some real clarity and I felt proper kind of connection with presence I've described before. And then there's a, you know, bunch of thoughts and emotions going on and on, telling me I have to believe them and I have to worry about shit and it's scary and I have to believe that stuff. And I, whoever I am, haven't yet managed. Well, as I say, a long time ago, I kind of did see through that seemingly. But anyway, I still haven't been able to see through those thoughts in some sense, going, that's just a bunch of thoughts. I don't believe that. It feels like I believe that those things to be worried
Well,
about.
and I'm glad that's the case, because if you said that's just a bunch of thoughts, I don't need to believe that, that's just bypassing. You're just fooling yourself. Yeah.
I know I'm looking at it going, it seems that I believe them and I'm trying to see why that's happening or how it's happening or
Okay. Well, if it comes to you, don't look for why it's happening. Look for what is happening. So that's the only thing. So no effort, and everything that comes up is okay, because it is what it is. You know, this can't be anything but okay. And now okay is the wrong way to put it, I guess, but you know, everything that comes up is what comes up. And so any desire for it to be different is just, you know, get your hand out of your pocket for a while, you know. That's all that is, you know. So the idea of accepting whatever turns up, and because as soon as I say that, I can't say anything really, because it's all contradictory. But just as soon as you say accepting what comes up, it makes it sound like it's a job you've got to do. You know, oh, I must accept it. Well, you can't, of course. So you do what you do, and if it comes up that you accept it, then it's great. But the idea that accepting it is a good thing, that's just an idea, and that's worth having, you know, hanging on to that idea, you know. Now, to say I failed at that, okay. So if you fail at that, you fail at that. That's just what comes up. Right? So we're not going to judge it. And then we say that, but then we do judge it. And if we do judge it, well, that's okay too. Right? And then I say, well, don't judge the fact that you've judged it. And if you do, well, that's okay too. And we can go on and on and on forever with that one. Right. So essentially, right, you've got this idea that there's stuff wrong with you. And I'm saying it's just stuff that comes up. It's not wrong. It's not right. Not any of that stuff. It's just what comes up.
Yeah, maybe that's.
Now, if you can see it from that perspective, all of a sudden that removes from you the ability to be critical about yourself. Oh, and I don't know about that. That'd be a bit of a shock, wouldn't it? What are we going to do?
Yeah. No, but I can see the difference. I just the feeling that I am the one who is wrong, or it's about me, is very strong. It feels like me, and that's sort of the focus in the last few months or whatever is on that feeling of me, as I've described before. Going, why does that feel like me? How come that? How do I know that's me? It's just a feeling. It's just a sensation. What's the story? And how can I whatever recognize that that isn't me? It's just a feeling or a sensation, but it feels like me.
Yeah, I get that. Now look, that if that's there, that's there. Okay. Now you know about the me and not me and all that stuff. So, you know, forget about it. You don't have to chase down that thing. So it's not wrong that you feel that that's you. That is what is there. It feels like that's you. You know that that's an illusion, but nevertheless, there's the feeling, and that's the way it is, right? So there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. You can't, if you do criticize yourself for whatever, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
We don't have to invent a story about that's you doing it. That's just what's there. Everything is just what's there. It's the added stories about what it means that is the problem. But that's also just what's there.
That's also, yeah.
So it is what it is,
yeah.
what it is, what it is. Get that one. Say it to yourself. It is what it is, what it is. It is what it is. It can be nothing but what it is. That's it. It is.
That's it. Yeah.
So there's no judgment in that. There's just a recognition of the fact that that's what's there. Full stop.
Yeah. I mean, it's what am I saying?
Leaves you a bit
That if
speechless, doesn't it?
Hmm?
It leaves you a
What?
bit speechless
Oh,
because there's
well,
nothing to say
yeah,
about it, is there?
that's unlikely. No, what is, well, the thing I can, well, that's not altogether true. You know
Unlikely.
me, right?
Yeah.
But the thing I can say about it is if it is what it is, the thing that's going on here, I suppose the thing that's sort of unacceptable about what's going on here is if this, whatever is going on, means what I don't want it to mean, which is that I am doomed to being this amount of suffering for the rest of my life, and I will never get out of this, no matter how much therapy or awakening stuff I do. I'm like, I can't bear that. I want to see through this effectively enough to undo that possibility.
Right.
And I can't, even if I'm just saying no to reality, I'm like, no, I say no to that reality. I want to see through this.
I get that, and that's good. That's there. That's what it is. Okay. And I just forgot what I was going to say right in the middle of it. Yeah, anyway, it'll come back or not.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. I don't know what, the other thing I do, I've said this before as well, I sometimes do drag myself back. I was saying that to the present moment. This notion of going into meditation, getting calm, it's just a mystery to me. But anyway, but I sometimes bring myself back and like Angelo's single pointed approach that he describes, and I go, right, that sounds like what I need. You know, like it was one of his videos. Again, he was talking about if you recognize that all of the stuff you've been doing in your head is causing you suffering, can't you just drop all of that? It's obvious that all that, you know. And I go, yeah, I know, but I don't seem to drop it. So
Yeah.
he goes, well, if you can't just drop it from recognizing it, from understanding it, then you can do the single pointed thing, and you can do the what is mu or something. And as I said last week, I found that kind of like a year ago thinking about what is mu. I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck does that mean? Why would you meditate on something you can't understand for several years? That sounds incredibly frustrating. And but then recently I'm going, oh yeah, mu is just something I can't understand. That's where I'm trying to be, is the place where my mind isn't trying to understand everything all the time. So if I use mu as a placeholder for whatever this is that I can't understand, and I go, I'm just going to stay, and I'm not trying to, I don't know, I'm saying not trying to stop thinking or squeeze out my thoughts. And I'm trying to assert very vigorously to myself over and over, these thoughts aren't true, or they're not about this, or I'm not going to believe these thoughts, they're not believable, or something like that. And I'm just going to keep coming back to the present as much as I can. And just, yeah, I suppose almost stop thinking or not believe the thoughts, or just go, no, I'm not going to go off with thoughts.
So if it is what it is, there's no room for belief or not belief, is there?
I don't know.
Well, what it
I don't
is
know how to just
is a
watch the. They
recognition
say
that
watch
that's all
the
happened.
thoughts going past. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. They just get believed.
But you don't try and do anything, and don't
Yeah.
try to not do anything either. Right? You recognize what's there, and not what it means, just what it is. So what it is, what it is, what it is, doesn't allow you to be critical of what is. But if you are critical of what is, that's also what is.
Um.
So there's no room for anything other than recognizing what exists, what comes up.
Yeah.
What comes up is you can call it good or bad. And if you do, that's also just what is.
Um,
And if you say it's bad, it's just what is. And then if you say thinking it's bad is bad, that's also just what is. So there's no escape from just what is. So every
I
time
don't.
you get into anything about it, I'm talking too much or
Mm,
anything at all, it's
yeah.
just what is. It's a
Um,
trap. It's a trap. So
yeah.
you're in a corner and you can't go anywhere because there is nothing that isn't just what is. Absolutely nothing. Nothing you can think, nothing you can say, nothing you can do that isn't just what is. If it happens, there it is.
Yeah. Um,
So let's say what is and put is, is, in capitals, bold,
yeah.
and underlined.
Yeah. Um,
Going to leave you a bit powerless, and that's going to be a bit of a trick, isn't it? Because essentially you're going to find ways to try and make it something other than what is. You're going to invent stories about it, how it's bad, usually, right?
yeah.
But that also, those stories are also just what is. There is absolutely no way you can escape from what is.
Um, oh, it's weird. Yeah. It feels like, it still feels like there's a choice or something
Well,
between.
that's what is too, isn't it?
That's what it is, maybe. Yeah. Um,
That feels
that.
like is what is, and what it feels like is also what is.
Like, in order even to, like, when you're telling me this, I can hear you and I can sort of respond to it. But if you're not there, in order to have that perspective or something, I have to come back to being present and remembering it rather than being distracted on some other thought.
And if you get distracted on some other thought, we can say that's what is, but you're not going to realize it until you kind of get out of that little distraction enough to go,
Yeah.
oh, that's also what is.
Yeah.
Right. So eventually, no matter what you get into, no matter how bad you get into to self-loathing or whatever you want to call it, however, eventually it'll always, the thought will come up that, oh, is this also just what is? Yes, it's just what is.
I don't yet believe that, because I feel like the criticism will layers upon layers. If I come back from one criticism, I'm going, you see, I got criticized, I was lost in my thoughts again. And I'm always doing that. And I always do it. And that just, no matter how many times I see that, I criticize myself again and again and again and get distracted and criticize again and again. And that can go on for hours and days and whatever, my whole life. That
And is that
criticism,
not,
distraction, routine, no matter how many times I notice, I criticize and distract again, and it doesn't calm down until I'm going to fucking stay here now, and that's it. And I'm just going to grit my teeth and hold my, and I do that, and that flipping well works, it's ridiculous. And I do this and I go, what is moo or something? And I go, this, whatever, my sights and sounds and sensations that I can see, direct experience to the extent that I can experience directly. I'm going, I'm fucking staying here with this direct experience. I'm not going to go off with thoughts. And I make myself do that. And then I notice the sensations get really, really intense and really uncomfortable and really, really, and I feel like I can't breathe. I'm going to suffocate if I don't think. It feels like that. If I'm going to suffocate and die if I don't think. And I make myself stay present without getting distracted. And it feels, despite the massive effort, it feels more peaceful. It feels like all the glimpses I've ever had are that presence that I'm trying to stay with. That's what those things showed me, was that presence. And this distraction I'm trying to stay away from is all the bullshit I've been in for decades. And I'm trying to go, I have to stay with these glimpses or stay with this truth that I've seen. And I can't keep going off with those fucking thoughts. And I have to make myself do it, because I can't. A little small, nice, little compassionate, loving effort to do it is fucking useless. I have to just do it this intense way. And I was doing the last few weeks, I do it for a few hours or a few minutes every now and then. I watch Angelo videos and I do it. And it seems to work, but it doesn't, it's also not sustainable because I'll spring back off into distraction as soon as I stop making the effort. But I don't know what else to do because I can feel the quality of the glimpses properly when I do that. And I go, that's what I'm here for. This presence or this truth or this something that I've felt. Not the stupid, distracting, habitual things. And there's supposed to be nobody here who can choose between them. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't. As I know I said this to you loads of times, that maybe a time will come in the future when I'll go, oh, you were so right, Vince. No effort was needed. But I can't.
Yeah. Mind you, I have no interest or desire in being right, although I do feel good when it happens, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to just be able to settle into that. I just have this fear, I'd like to settle into, settle into some relaxed state of presence or calm or something, relaxation, and just go, I'm just going to relax. And
Done.
I don't have to be vigilant all the time to prevent myself going off and worrying. Go on, Ramiz.
How do you feel
Now?
Good
Yeah.
one. I like that. Yeah.
I'm upset, I'm sad, I'm stressed, I'm afraid, I'm tired. Yeah, hopeless. Things like that.
What do you feel your body wants to express?
I don't. Normally, I don't feel the body wants to express things very much. I don't feel like the body wants to express very much. I do move a little bit recently, but I mean, I don't know how to feel that so much. In some sense, I want to get away. The body wants to get away. But it wants to get away from all this criticism, and that's coming around with me in my head. But it wants to get away from, feels frozen and trapped in this place where criticism comes from all directions. And there's very few places where I'm free of that, or what. But that's kind of what the body says, I suppose, is get me away from here. Every now and then I find a place, and it's something at random where I'm going, oh, phew, I'm away from that, even though my head is with me. I don't feel the body stuff very much. I don't know. Do you feel that from the neck down body stuff? I did feel a bit. I was doing one of the various sessions last week with somebody, whichever one of the people I work with, probably Luciana. She was really cool. She's really great. But and I was just feeling sensations in my head to begin. I was not thinking, but constriction, sensations, and it was starting with that contraction in my head, and then also in my torso and stuff. And I was just going into that sensation, feeling whatever, without thinking about it. And that really moved around for a while, and it was really good. But it's hard to do it on my own. So yeah, but I don't. Do you when you ask yourself that, Ramiz, when you go, how am I feeling? Do you start to feel sensations in the body, and you can feel? I don't find that very easy to connect with.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, but I can feel when I want to scream, or I want to shout, or I want to cry and crawl in my bed, or I want to shake.
Okay.
There's a finite things that the body wants to express. Just feel into it. It doesn't need too much thinking.
I can feel it now. I can
It-
feel a lot of fear in my body now. But it doesn't want to express the fear physically or in any way because there's too much fear that it isn't a safe place to do that. Even here in my house.
What will happen?
There's a fear of being attacked, I suppose. Something like that.
Can you be attacked now?
No. But the fear is there. I don't know if it wants to do to move either. I feel lonely and I feel afraid. I don't know what movement would be relevant for that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't feel that coming up as a movement.
Try to hug yourself.
Yeah. It feels, I still feel like a frightened child in the corner. I don't feel like I'm, every now and then it's possible for, I've said before, but like, what am I saying? I don't feel like I can, that reparenting thing is a mystery to me most of the time. I don't feel I'm being with my inner child. I feel I am my inner child. And I don't, and so then I'm another managerial inner child going, I need to get my shit together. I need to be compassionate with my inner child. And I'm some 14 or 15-year-old version of me who's a bit stressed out, trying to do inner child work. And I feel guilty for not being able to do it too, of course, but yeah, it's hard to feel together enough to do it. And if I'm doing that teeth gritting presence exercise I described a minute ago, that being in that place of presence is where I could do it from. Just hard to stay there. There's a lot of resistance to staying there from all directions, from thinking, and yeah, rambling on. But it kind of pisses me off too, because like so many of the therapies and stuff and the things I've read about and people have said, it seems to me that once you start recognizing presence and self and whatnot, and the whole brain and the whole system goes, oh, that's my true nature. Let's go there. It's so cool. It's so relaxing. It's peaceful. And people kind of gravitate towards their natural state of peace or something. And my system's like, fucking no, we're not going there. And so anyway, I drag myself there kicking and screaming. And I know when I'm there, I'm going, yep, I could do inner child work from here if I could only stay here. But it's just hard I'm really struck by the intensity of the thing. I was just say, like, the intensity of the thinking, and if I try and stop it, or as I say, I'm repeating myself, but I try and not believe the thinking. All I'm doing is asserting. I'm going, this is just thinking. It's not happening now. Let's just not believe this. And the intensity, I feel like I'm going to suffocate to death. I'm just really intense sensations. And I'm going, it's just fucking ridiculous, just from trying not to believe my thoughts. And, but the presence is obvious, but at the same time, the determination to get away from presence is unbelievable. And I'm like, how long am I going to have to do this for before it calms down? I don't know.
It'll never calm down. You'll be like this till the day you die.
Thanks, Vince. I knew there was a reason I came to these meetings.
Have you watched the Toxic Starting Point video?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Well,
I'm not sure what. You go on, tell me.
Because a lot of the things you're saying, like that's how I feel around presence. Like I mean, I mean, like, and now, like, the farther I go, well, anyway, so I watched the toxic starting point video, and that third one, the chameleon, like, where she talks about, I don't know, just, the only exercise she gave was to sit and just look at the leaves and just be present. And after I watched that video and tried that, like, it felt horrible. Like it just felt so scary and horrible. And you know, and my mind was like, I noticed that she talked about 3 different starting points, and she talked about where the other 2 come from and what they're about. And she didn't say anything about the third one. Like, she just said, like, be present and say, but so anyway, when it's really hard to do that. But when I don't feel like, so when I feel a lot of fear, trying to be present, what I talk to myself about is like, look at how safe you are, like you have food, you have a house. And I don't usually go into, whatever, I don't know what my inner child is feeling generally. Like I just know I'm feeling fear, so I just talk about like how safe it is now. And also the 2 phrases that she gave were, I love myself and I'm here. And you know, to be present and to say like I'm here is actually kind of hard. Like, so
Yeah, I might go back and do. I never do these things consistently. I could do them for a few days, and then some other drama happens, and I do something else, and I do something else. But yeah, I have listened to those videos. The one that I'm safe probably suits me better, does it? I'm not sure which. Yeah, but I try and do. Yeah, I'd like to have this. I feel like I have this notional thing of like a daily practice of a certain length of time, and it's always the same, and I do it consistently over a period of weeks or months. Whereas instead, what happens is I do something for a couple of days, and then something else happens. I just spend most of my day trying to drag myself back to just to being present. So, but I'll remember that, and I'll see if I can. Yeah.
Well, I
I
say
want to comment.
Sorry, Bianca. What?
You know, don't I haven't seen you before so convinced. And when you were talking about this moo technique.
The which?
Moo.
Moo. Oh yeah.
You were so convinced about it, confident.
Yeah.
And I don't know, excited. But mostly it's this confidence that it works for you. I haven't seen it before. I don't know, Vince, you know Don longer, so.
That's interesting, yeah. Because I guess that's one of the things I like most about Angelo. He has this positivity, and I'm going, yeah, I can, and he has that extra layer of, if it's not working any other way, make a fucking effort, and that kind of thing. And I'm going, yep, I think I have to do that, even though it's really hard. But I kind of take a little bit of confidence from the way he describes it. If I understand, I'm not sure if I do, but you know, yeah, sometimes. But yeah, thank you. I do feel a bit confident about that. That it's the only way left that I can find. So I have to just do it until something changes, if something changes. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
something completely different could change at any time. But
I mean, you use so much, so often. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll try. I don't. And when you were talking about moo, there was none of that.
That's true. No, it does seem
unusual for you.
That's true. There is a clarity here now that says, I know that direction. That's the right direction. and all this other bullshit has to be let go of or dropped or seen through or something else, and I have to keep going in this direction with whatever amount of effort it requires. And I can't do anything else. So like there's no other thing I can see to do right now. So yeah, I wish it was easier and something else happened in between, but for the moment, that's all I can see. Yeah.
That sounds like
Because even though, yeah. Sorry.
that sounds like a good one then, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess. Because even though the figuring out, whatever figuring out is, almost everything involves the mind, and I just I get caught up so easily, like almost immediately, when the mind is involved. It just seems so. Who was asking me about this other thing? I can't remember now, but about maybe I said this here a few weeks ago about there's no description. I told you this before about Angelo's video. It's his meditation called Endless Access, where he trying to describe the place, you know, being connected or something, and he hesitates and then he says, and there's just no description for it. And that just brings tears to my eyes whenever even now when I'm saying it. And it's funny how it seems to me, maybe I haven't got it yet, but whenever people talk about the not knowing and the void and the place where nothing can be understood, and I'm like, it's fucking freedom. Oh my God. Like nothing can be understood is the only place of freedom, because everywhere else is full of thoughts and mind and control and thinking, and it seems so obvious to me the only place I can be free is where there's nothing to be understood, and I want to be there.
Yeah, you've got it. That's great. Yeah. So what I see, what one of the ways I describe this whole waking up process is to recognize that there's a whole world where words and thoughts don't work. There's a whole thing underneath all of that, and that's where we're going, you know.
That's the and the number one belief that I feel I need to see through or something is I don't have permission to go there and live there, because I can see it genuinely. Yeah. That's the world where I can be myself, whatever that even means, just spontaneously. And the thought created world is the one I have for dealing with my dad, who of course is dead, but somehow it's just this habitual thing. And I'm going, I need to stop believing that I must stay in this thought created world.
Sure, yeah.
Because my survival depends on it. I need to drop that, and I don't. It's very hard.
I hope this is helpful to you. I've done more work with my dad since he's been dead than I ever did when he was alive.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. I didn't think of that. Yeah. I don't do it directly with him as a because we got on okay in the last couple of years, but just that all of his beliefs and fears and shame and all that shit.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it, isn't it? You know, like you got to forgive for being an innocent child, really.
I've kind of forgiven him. And it's funny, people are going to say, just drop that. Just drop that. You know, just forgive him. Just drop it. It's like
me up every time I hear it. Yeah.
It's just like I had a you know a disagreement with the person at the checkout in the supermarket. I'm annoyed by it. They go, just drop that. I'm like, yeah, but I could do that because it would just one incident and I just drop it and it'll be gone. But it's not my whole childhood I'm trying to drop in one decision, you know. Yeah, so I've dropped. I don't have much anger, resentment, or anything left really. I've hardly any, none maybe, but all those patterns are still kind of.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it would be lovely if I did find that there was no effort needed, but and like I can see the place I'm making the massive effort to go to and stay in.
Yeah.
There's no effort needed there.
That's right. But at the same time, sometimes effort is what you need to get to where you realize there's no effort required.
Yeah.
You know, so it is what it is. Yeah.
You
know what it is? It's tea time here, and I've got
it is. Yeah, you better
risotto.
Go.
So there you go.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Sorry to be a bit curt at this, but there you go.
No, I started in late anyway because it was
Mm.
early in the morning for me.
All right.
So-
Yeah, thought it was just going to be me and Ramiz today, and then yeah, we done well, didn't we? Yeah. It feels good, regardless of any outcome. Yeah. Mm. Okay, so I'll see you all later, eh?
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.